Monday, November 5th. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight we talk about information technology warfare.
Let's do this. Anything else going on?
Nah.
No? Nothing? Just want to do news, or you got something?
I don't know. I've been sitting here for the last half hour waiting for you to be ready to do the show.
I was watching a video waiting for you.
I said, you want to do the show? And you said, no, after I watch this video. You want to do the show? No, after I do this thing. You want to do the show? No, I gotta,
Whatever. I got all this stuff to take care of because my credit card expires in October 08, but because before they renewed it, it was going to expire in October 07. So certain places think my credit card expired, so I had to run around changing it. But I didn't have passwords or account numbers because I don't actually do them. I do everything automatically with no mail, so
See,
I don't know the numbers.
That's the benefit of one. I have two credit cards. One that expires, regularly. It's a normal credit card, and one that expires in 2014, and I use that just for recurring things.
Yeah, and then I've got. I got to get some tires for my car before it snows, probably this weekend. I got laundry to do, which I was going to do yesterday, which I didn't do, which I was going to do today, which I didn't do, so I'm going to have to do it tomorrow.
Why didn't you do it?
I didn't.
Did, perhaps it was because of Mario 3?
Maybe because of Mario 3, partially.
I was really surprised to come home and find you not playing Mario 3.
Well, I got to World 3, and then I sort of stopped,
No, you got to warp to World 5, the best world.
Well, I was going to, I told myself, I said, if Rim walked in the door, I said, you know what, I have a plan. I'm going for the shoe.
And just have the shoe open when I get there?
Maybe, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through Worlds 3 and 4 and then get the shoe.
See, that's the thing. Now that it's on the virtual console, I'm probably going to play through the whole thing in order just because a lot of parts of that game are really, really fun, like World 4, World 5,
right
and World 7.
Right now, I'm in my most hated world, which is the world in World 3 where you can get infinite lives with the Locky 2. Yeah, I wanted to try to get the infinite lives, and then I gave up.
I did the infinite lives in World 2 with the Goombas that keep coming out of the pipe.
Boo, that's the shitty way. You got to do the bouncing back and forth turtle shell with the Locky 2 throwing spinies in.
I don't know, I like because it takes skill to keep hitting those Goombas in just the right pattern.
Whatever. Anything else there?
Nah, let's just get right into it, because we've been going long, actually, a lot lately, and we're pushing the libs in to the max.
Oh, so let's keep it short.
Yeah, I think we can do that.
Okay.
All right, so we'll save Scott's news because I bought one, I guess, or I'm gonna buy one, or maybe one wasn't able to be bought, or we'll get into that.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, the internet is wrong, and Dig is wrong, and Gadget is right. But my news, I'm not gonna talk about what you think I'm gonna talk about, but I'm in terms of. There's this article here on Slashdot, and there are similar articles in every, copycat crap blog everywhere about how cell phone jamming is on the rise. Now, people are buying these, they're so frustrated with people who just yap on their cell phone in public places or in movies or in stores or on trains or in subways that they're buying these portable devices that jam cell phones. Now, aside from the fact that, one, that's illegal, two, it's stupid, three, just deal with it, or four, go to places where they have policies that just say you can't use a cell phone and they kick anyone out who does. Mm-hmm. But what I'm going to talk about is not so much that technology, but the fact that, funny how all these articles suddenly appeared and how, there's actually products that are kind of associated with this. This is once again, if I am not mistaken, an example of a fake marketing, well, not really a fake marketing campaign.
It's just PR. That's all it is.
It's a fake, not really grassroots, but they put a bunch of buzz out pretending. The buzz says that this thing is getting really popular if you haven't already heard about it.
Yeah, if you buy your local newspaper and in it you see an article that says cell phone jammers controversy, their cell phone jammers are made by the following companies. This company makes this one and this company makes this one. Guess what? That's not some reporter at your newspaper going out and getting the scoop on this. That same article or a similar article is in every newspaper, and the companies that make those products went to those newspapers and had those articles written. That's how PR works. Welcome to the world.
But yeah, I think the worst example I've ever seen, I was in Yonkers reading some Yonkers paper, and I'm just flipping through it, and it's a terrible paper. But then there's this article about the rise in popularity of renting handbags. That's right. Can't afford the $4,000 super fancy handbag? You can rent it for $100 a week for as long as you need it.
Yeah, if that's not PR, I don't know what is.
Yeah, and they talked about how this is like really popular among the nouveau riche, and oh god,
Yeah. Regardless, cell phone jamming.
It's illegal?
It's illegal, and it should be.
Yes.
If you need a reason, I could argue for like an hour of why it should be illegal, but I'll just say one thing. 911. I win.
Yep, or even doctors with pagers.
I win again.
Yep.
Firemen.
The real
I
issue
win again.
is a lot of people complain about cell phones being used in public places, but there are two kinds of people that complain. The first kind is kind of
Old
legit.
people.
No. That's the third kind. So there are two kinds. Three
kinds.
Fanatical devotion to the
old
Pope.
people.
But the first kind, which is kind of legitimate, is when you're on the train or you're in the restaurant and there's that one guy in the corner and you hear the following. So I says to him, hey, can you hear me? Yeah, anyway. So I says to him, I'm yelling into my cell phone.
The problem there is not the cell phone. The problem there is someone being loud in a quiet place, like in a library being loud. Cell phone or not, cell phone is not the problem. The loud and quiet place is the problem.
Yep. Or not even loud and quiet, but also inconsiderate jackass among non-inconsiderate non-jackasses.
Uh-huh.
The cell phone is just an enabler. It's not the root cause.
Yep.
But two, the other kind of people complain about people just using cell phones, and not like, oh, he's driving with the cell phone, but I've seen people and I've been with people who complained about someone who's just walking down the street or in the grocery store talking quietly, no louder than if they'd been talking to someone next to them on a cell phone. How is that any more annoying than someone just talking to someone?
I think that's the old people, you know. They just hey, young whippersnappers, you're doing your newfangled
we
stuff.
gotta qualify.
Hey.
Much like when we say fat people, we mean, ugh. When we say old people, we don't mean old of age. We mean old of spirit.
Yes.
And not the cool, venerable, like, respect your elders old of spirit. I mean crotchety of spirit.
The crotchety. There's I'm playing the Phoenix Wright. I guess it's why we talk so much about games on Monday, but there's there is a character who is crotchety and old in spirit.
But there's also a character who is sexy and awesome despite the fact that he has scientific eyes.
No, there are sexy women characters.
Trying to avoid that one.
Anyway, so everyone knows, if you paid attention to the internet, that so-called Google phone something was going to be announced today.
But wait, according to Dig, it was announced and it's free. It makes puppies every time you make a call, and the puppies are free and don't need to eat. You can fly. It solved world hunger. It works on Verizon. It's the same as the iPhone, only better.
Right, no.
It has Bluetooth.
Yeah, I'm
and 802.11 AVGN X.
All right, you're done. The point is that Engadget knew what was going on. They said what was going on. People decided to say more was going on than what Engadget said, thinking they knew better. Engadget put up the story today with the real scoop, which is exactly what they said it was going to be, which is what happens every time anything like this happens. Engadget knows 100% because they have their inside secret sources.
Pretty much, it's coming down to, if you see news on Dig about technology, and the first place and only place you saw it was Dig, it's probably not true.
Yes. So what is the story with this Google phone of some sorts? Well, there's two stories here. The first story is that Google bought a while ago, they bought this company called Android. Everyone knows they bought this company called Android. It was public news. They didn't make a big deal out of it, but it happened, and it was publicly available information. And that company was making a mobile platform, basically an operating system for phones, much like Symbian or Palm or any of those, or Windows Mobile. And Google bought it, and it's Linux-based, and they're going to put it out, and it's going to be open, which means people can make applications for it, and people can modify it, and all that business. Also, there's the second bit of news is that there is an open handset alliance they have formed of 33 different companies that are involved in phones in some way, and all these people have vowed to support this platform in some way. You know, they're all in on this, right? And Microsoft, Palm, Apple, not so in on this.
I wonder why.
Nokia not so in on it, but everyone else in. So
yes, everyone else, the vast number of people who have power in this industry are not.
Well, no, 33. It's basically 33. It's basically all the small guys and Google versus the four big guys.
The thing is, if all the stated, like, if it works, if all this comes to be, really, then I think they'll win.
Well, no, you see, because the thing is, while they're gonna, it's gonna be a Linux-based operating system of whatever, right? But and if you could get a copy of it probably off the internet, and you could make software for it, but there's nothing that says, say, if T-Mobile puts it on their phones, that it'll be available, not locked down, so you can modify it like on your phone. There's no, it's basically saying, yeah, there's going to be yet another operating system for phones, and supposedly this one is better than all the other ones out there, except for, I guess, iPhone, or maybe hopefully better than iPhone. I don't know.
Well, iPhone would be better if it included certain specific features.
Yeah. Basically, I think what's just going to end up happening is there will be yet another phone operating system that will be better than all the other ones, at least in terms of interface and features. But who knows exactly how far it will go? I don't really think it's going to be the promised savior.
Well, I think, one, it is definitely a step in the right direction.
That's for sure.
I mean, this is a problem as a whole that can't really be solved in one fell swoop without government interaction, which is obviously a loaded event that is probably not desirable in the end.
Loaded? It's like 3 times loaded. It's not just loaded, it's like elites. There's 2 of them.
But if this were, say, coupled with lobbying efforts that eventually forced interoperability or non-lockdownness or any sort of thing like that, then suddenly this becomes a very big deal.
Well, it becomes a very big deal. Someone did ask during the thing about the 700 megahertz auction, which maybe we should talk about sometime exactly what the deal with is. But
we should probably do a show on that.
Yeah.
Like, the whole idea of like the FCC and controlling frequencies and let's do that.
The general idea is that there's going to be a spectrum auction for the 700 megahertz spectrum,
which is a pretty hot spectrum.
And if Google,
like, seriously, think of this as I think the BBC used the term beachfront property.
Yes. Now, basically, all you need to know about this right now, because I'm not going to talk anymore about it, is that if Google wins the auction, we win too. If anyone else wins the auction, we lose. So if you have money to buy Google shares, which are like $700 a piece, I think.
Yeah. I remember I wanted to bid on their IPO, and I thought, like, what's the most... Because it was a weird IPO where you had to, like, bid an amount of money.
It was like a Dutch auction thing.
Yeah.
Of some sort. Seemed to work out for them, though.
Well, because then when it happened, like, I tried to guess at what the price would eventually end up at, and I was off by almost 2 orders of magnitude.
Yes, so at the close of trading today, November 5th, Google shares are $725.65.
Well, I guess if I use my credit card, I could buy a few.
You could buy a handful of them.
I feel like I should buy one.
Well, the more you buy, the better chance Google has of winning the auction.
Yeah, but we should really do a show about that because a lot of people are, like you said, really confused by what these auctions mean, and also why the 700 range is so much, I guess, more important than the much more easily available high-frequency bands.
Yep.
The real long and short of it is this, and long and short of it is kind of a pun, but low-frequency good, penetrates things better, high-frequency bad, blocked by your house.
Yeah.
That's as simple as I can put it.
Yeah, that's about good.
Things of the day. So, let's say someone took a picture at their wedding, and then, later they look at the pictures, and they see that, their dog was, like, poking out from a stair railing over the guy's shoulder. Well, how do you think you would react to that if one of your wedding pictures had your dog looking at you in the background?
I don't know, that's not so bad.
Well,
you can always Photoshop it if it bothers you that much.
This family, I guess, didn't recognize their own dog, decided it was a demon, freaked out, called Fox News. Fox News does this story about, oh my God, creepy photo. And it's clearly a dog. Like, unambiguously a dog looking over the guy's shoulder.
So is that it?
That's it. But, I mean, here's the Fox News breaking... It's a picture you really have to look at, and when you do, you'll notice something is not quite normal. In fact, it might be paranormal. Fox 31's Tammy Vigil reports.
If it is, I got $1 million for you. $1 million.
There are things like this all the time, but It's like you.
I saw Jesus in my French toast.
It's not even that. It's a dog. It's so obviously a dog. You would have to be. The Rain Man would say it's a dog. Like you got one dog.
One dog.
One dog.
One dog.
But serious. And even if it wasn't a dog, it's still obviously not a demon.
Yeah, it was a demon at your wedding. Your wedding's cursed. You better break up. You're going to bring more stupidity into the world.
I mean, you could argue that maybe
Your wedding was not meant to be.
maybe it looks like a champagne bottle, but no, it's a dog. It's a dog.
A dog that looks like a champagne bottle? I can't see this picture. You need to rotate your chair. That's a dog. I can see it from here. It's a dog.
All right, so I'll just leave it. There's a video. You can see the people who took the picture reacting, and these people are either lying for attention or really, really dumb.
Yep. Well, everyone likes toilet humor. You like toilet humor?
I am a man who for some 4 years read Poop Report every week.
Pee.
Have I talked about Poop Report on this show?
You will later. So today, I saw this video from the World Toilet Summit and Expo 2007 in New Delhi, India.
That sounds like an awesome place to be.
Yeah, it's like
The Toilet Expo, not New Delhi.
It was like a big trade show for toilets and I guess, what's it called? Septic technologies.
So I have a question. Does this conference address the fact that the U.S. is pretty much a third world country when it comes to having an enjoyable peeing experience?
I think it might in some places. They had a lot of very fancy and futuristic toilets, trying all sorts of innovation in the waste disposal,
Or by fancy and
departments.
futuristic, you mean they had them 40 years ago in Japan.
Right. Well, they actually had some stuff that, that's actually new as far as the world is concerned.
Yeah, well,
But also,
I'm just really complaining about the fact that I can't have an enjoyable pee in the U.S.
a lot of what they're focusing on, though, is the fact that most of the world doesn't have toilets. They're people without toilets, and they're like, hey, the UN is trying to get toilets for people.
See, it's tricky because America has toilets, but they're old, wasteful toilets, or they're low-flow toilets. And other than German toilets, I think we have the worst toilets in the developed world.
Yeah, maybe. Except for the completely, absolutely no toilets, which
Yeah,
is the worst.
but at least when there's... Well, I'm not going to get into that because that's a whole other problem, and I guess I should feel bad complaining that my peeing experience is somewhat suboptimal when there are people who pee in the water they drink.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I really think we could have better toilets in the U.S. And
Man,
I think,
if there was like a pond, right? Why would I would just pee on the ground instead of being in the water.
But you pee in the ground. Okay, now there's a lot of people, and they all pee in the ground, and then it rains, and that seeps into your drinking water, and there's really no way around that.
Yeah, but
Or
it
like-
wouldn't be as bad as everyone peeing directly in the water.
Or like in the movie The Man Who Would Be King. You know how he conquers all the tribes and goes up the river? Because every tribe downriver hates the tribe up the river because they pee in the river. Because they don't care. Because obviously there's nothing downriver that matters.
Except the other
Except
tribe.
Sean Connery.
Yeah, I didn't see that movie. So,
That's the movie Jess was trying to make you watch because it's awesome.
but anyway, you watch this, and there's some pretty interesting pee and poop technologies here that you can be amused by. Especially this one girl. She's like way younger than us. Like I think she's like a teenager, but she invented some sort of cool way for trains to dump their waste without doing it the smelly way they do it now.
Well, see, part of what I was getting at is that the U.S. wastes a lot of water, which is particularly bad because people in the South waste water that they're buying from the North that is depleting the Great Lakes.
Yeah, I
So
think
it's-
there's a real problem with just people insisting on living in places that don't have water.
It's not even that, because they could. There are ways to do that very well. The problem is, and as my mother pointed out so angrily, there are people who live in New York, and they get sick of New York, and they want to move out west. They move to Arizona. But then they decide that they want a golf course and a green sod lawn. And they
You can
spend...
have a sandy golf course.
No, these people have greener lawns than I had when I lived in the suburbs in Michigan, in the middle of the desert. And
I don't understand the obsession with what your lawn looks like. I just don't get it. I mean, as long as it's not like a forest and you can't walk around because it's, full of ticks and things.
the line between lawn is okay and lawn needs something done about it, is when there are dead things hidden in the lawn.
Yeah, pretty much.
That is pretty much the line.
That's my line also. Or when it's dangerous to walk across my lawn.
But maybe if the U.S. adopted some of these technologies, which we could, but we don't for reasons that are very complicated. Actually, they're not complicated at all, but Like, in America, right, we have high-flow toilets, and they're awesome. My poop goes away, and that's probably
Every time, doesn't clog.
the most important thing to me.
Yep.
But then, they waste a lot of water. All right, let's use low-flow toilets.
Now my poop is still there.
I flush.
It won't go away.
Poop's still there. Flush again, poop's still there. Take, like, the cardboard, the
By the
toilet
time
paper, break the poo in two.
You've flushed so many times that you've wasted more water.
It's kind of like the low-flow shower head. Great. Now I take a shower twice as long because I couldn't clean myself.
Yep.
So, but there are places like Japan where they just have two buttons. A button if you have a big thing and a button if you have a little thing. And the little button uses low flow and the big button gets rid of my poop.
I guess Americans are just too stupid to have two buttons. I mean, they can't even use like a computer mouse. How are they supposed to use a toilet with two buttons?
Yeah, I think we'll leave it at that.
You got these old people can't even use a cell phone, even though it's just like phones they've used their whole lives.
But you know what? They probably think like, oh man, back in the day, toilets were great. What happened to this country?
Yep. Oh, old people making everything bad for everyone else. All right.
So, speaking of old people, I don't know. Speaking of anything, our topic tonight is something kind of out of the blue because we couldn't come up with much else because Scott doesn't know much about science.
I know about science averagely across the board.
All right, I'll leave it at that. We're going to talk about something that's in the news kind of often, but yet I don't think a lot of people really understand. And we're going to talk about this in a very kind of non-technical overview way, just to get an idea of what does matter and what you should worry about, but more importantly, what you shouldn't worry about.
Mm-hmm.
People talk a lot about IT warfare or computer warfare, internet warfare.
Cyber wars.
China's got a cyber army ready to strike, and Russia attacked Estonia a while ago, which is true.
Yep. Okay, first of all, you got to realize that the vast majority of this stuff is just fear-mongering. People are coming up with words like cyber war to try to scare you and make you think that, there's dangerous hackers coming to get you. Oh no, run and hide. Computers are the devil.
Now, I'll say this. You have a lot more to be afraid of by clicking on spam and being phished, or just having someone steal your credit card information from some company you shopped with 5 years ago.
You have more to worry about Nigerian scams.
I think you have more to worry about driving your car.
Oh, definitely.
But at the same time, the real issue with cyber warfare is not, OMG, China's gonna get you. But the fact that cyber warfare is something that hasn't really been, I guess, vetted out by the armies and militaries of the world. And eventually there's going to be a war of some kind.
Yep.
And in the modern world, I mean, think of this. When was the last time there was a war between two powers that were both fully industrialized, or at least equally industrialized, and above the level of poverty or third worldness?
Me.
Me.
The Falkland Islands?
Possibly.
Yeah.
And how did the Falkland Islands go?
Not too well.
For either side.
Yeah.
I mean, as Zero Punctuation pointed out so eloquently, most of America's wars recently have involved stomping on people who can't fight back and then walking away merrily.
Something like that.
But it's very rare. The Falkland Islands, and before that, what? World War II? The Korean War?
Yep.
And even then, the Korean War was more a matter of I guess the Korean War and the Falklands were similar in one regard. It was a super powerful country extending its power very far away from itself, and thus was only able to expend a very small part of its power, and thus was able to be held off by a technologically inferior foe.
Oh, like that Vietnam or that Iraq.
But there has not been a time really since, and I know some military people might disagree, but I'm talking broadly in terms of technology. World War II was, that was when there were powers that were relatively equal in technology. In fact, the Germans outpaced the rest of the powers pretty substantially in technology.
The U-boats. Watch out.
New kinds of warfare appeared then, and war was a very uncertain business because it wasn't like war had been before. World War I was similar. It was a kind of warfare that had barely been tested. People didn't know what to expect. People tried old things, and World War II had that too. I mean, the Maginot Line, that was hot shit.
It was hot shit. That's why they walked around it, because if they went into it, they would have gotten fucked.
Except theoretically, the Maginot Line was so obsolete by the time it came into play that the Germans probably could have stomped over it regardless.
Maybe. It's a tough call.
Well, because the thing is,
even though it was obsolete, it was still a lot of really big guns, and, even if I come in here with an obsolete old-ass gun, I guess they'll blow your brains
It was
out
big
with
guns,
it.
but it was big guns designed to be used against a slow-marching army, and it was defense of... Well, it wasn't defense of death, and if the Germans just paratrooped a bunch of people behind it,
It might have, maybe.
Yeah.
It would have been tough.
I've read accounts both ways. But the point is that...
I think the Germans had the better plan of walk around, though.
to not go into a lot of... Because I kept introducing topics and then realizing that I had a lot to say and trying to back out.
Yeah.
The point is, cyber warfare is a new kind of warfare that has not been tested, and no one really knows what to expect. And the kinds of fighting that would go on are possibly alien to even modern powers like the United States, because kind of like how the great reason Napoleon was able to do so well was that he used very simple tactics that just no one else had thought of.
Yeah. Well, cyber warfare pretty much boils down to this, right? When you're at war with someone, for real, right? You generally want to hurt them or their infrastructure or them in some way. And
Yeah, war is not like it was before the World Wars, where, two armies would march out to the field and talk a little bit and agree on a place and then stand nicely in line shooting at each other for an hour.
no. So, many industrialized countries in the world, and even not so industrialized countries, have a lot of technology, be it, computers on the internet or other things that they rely on heavily. And think about it. If every computer in your house stops working for a week, that bothers you a bit. Imagine if every computer at a company stopped working for a week. All right, now imagine if, say, every computer for the state government stopped working for a week.
Well, knowing the U.S., that would have no effect on anything. But
I know, but the point is that when you depend on technology, and even if you don't depend on it, and you still have the backup of paper or whatever, it is madly less efficient than we're used to, and you're going to be hindered. And if your opponent still has the efficient computers working and you don't, you're at a disadvantage. So, cyber warfare, what it really boils down to is, someone is using technology. And there are things you can do to disable enemy technology and slow them down, damage them, or make them less efficient than you that don't really fit into the idea of classical warfare of blow them up or, stuff or steal their stuff.
And furthermore, it just comes down to if it's an actual war, total warfare, the point where you are fighting wholly as a nation, a nation's mobilized for war. In that case, much like the carpet bombings of the days of yore, you generally try to do whatever you can to disrupt the economy and the daily lives of people in the country you're fighting in order to disrupt the war machine, prevent the bits from being made to be put in the other bits to be shot at you.
Yep.
We're not arguing for or against these concepts.
No.
This is just kind of like from the cold-hearted strategic perspective, just so you know.
This could range from anything such as using EMPs in their cities to screw all their stuff up to, spamming them so much that they can't read their email communications to who knows.
So IT warfare is a very, very broad thing, and it can cover a lot of... It can cover everything. It's not like it's this special separate thing. It's just a new extension of existing war doctrine. The problem is it's untested and no one knows what to expect.
Think about it. If back in the day, right, you had tanks, the other guy had tanks. You want to destroy his tanks, there was only one way to do that. Boom. That was it. That was your only choice. Now, the other guy's using a tank, but the tank has a computer in it that depends on. So you don't really have to attack the tank with boom. You could attack computers with boom. That's a valid strategy. But because it's electronic, there are other ways that you can attack electronics.
For example,
and you have all these weapons that open up to you.
Let's say the tanks of this power are coordinated by a commander somewhere far away, or by a flag tank. And that flag tank or that commander communicate wirelessly with all the other tanks in the area. I disrupt that wireless signal. Now, instead of having one large cohesive force, I have 50 independent, powerful forces, but without that cohesion, they effectively have to act semi-independently or based on the last orders they got or whatever contingency plan they had.
And if my technology is still working, I'm the win.
Or if they do the same thing to me and both of our technologies are disabled, now who wins the battle doesn't come down to the traditional ideas, but it comes down to either the ingenuity of the individual tank commanders or the robustness of the countermeasures or the robustness of the contingency plans in case of said failings. And warfare suddenly becomes this kind of game counter game technologically to the point that the war is almost decided before the bullets are fired.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, if you, depend on the technology so much that, it runs the whole show, and without it, you basically only have this, X is all you can do if it all stops working. And then that's really all you've got 100%. The other stuff is just, if any of it still works, bonus.
I mean, and this, look at the U.S. Well, we invaded Iraq. Great. That was wonderful. I'm glad we did that. That worked so well for everyone. But
it's fantastic.
Look at how it played out. We had this technology and they didn't. So effectively, we never didn't have to worry about this at all. There was the nation of Iraq had zero capability of projecting force outside of its borders. And as a result, we could basically have the majority of our power, our economy, our command structure, our planning, everything was 100% safe and could just sit there and make decisions. And because Iraq had no way to in any way stop those decisions from being communicated, effectively, we could fight a war at our leisure and just command units on a computer screen.
Yep.
Against a real power like China, that might not happen.
I'm pretty sure it definitely won't happen.
Well, let's talk about specifics, because that's the more interesting part. Pick a few topics, and I think satellites is actually the big one, and a lot of people have been talking about this lately.
Yeah, I mean, because generally, nowadays, you think about it, not not many of the super generals actually, it's not like in the olden days where, the Tsar would go out to the war himself, in Russia or anything. You communicate around the world pretty much instantly.
Yeah, Bush or Clinton is not going to be sitting in a tank.
Yeah. So what you do is the only way to communicate around the world like that is either some sort of, cable, which is not so reliable because it goes through all these countries. Who knows who's going to, be spying on that, whatnot, or satellites. And
or I guess ad hoc mesh network, something fancy. We're not going to get into that.
Satellites, I think, are definitely the least susceptible to interception because it goes from you to space to you, as opposed from you to somewhere else on the ground to somewhere else on the ground to somewhere else on the ground.
Now you might think, all right, but this is an asymmetric situation, and it is, but not in the way you think it is. All right, U.S. or generic high-powered Western power has satellites everywhere, and the military is linked by satellites and uses satellites for everything, and we can project force anywhere on the globe, and we have force projection centers moving about, all communicating centrally via these satellites. You might think, well, it's so hard to put a satellite up. All right. Therefore, the U.S. just wins because they have these satellites and no one else can project force worldwide like that. Well, it's a lot cheaper to shoot some big heavy thing up that bumps into a satellite and breaks it than it is to make a satellite and put it up.
Satellites, super fragile, super expensive, super everything. A rock, cheap. Easy.
Now think of this. If the United States went to war with China, something I don't think would actually happen because I generally think that the leadership of China is smart enough to realize that would be a bad idea. I generally think the leadership of Taiwan is smart enough to not suddenly declare independence, even though they effectively are independent in all but name. And the China is certainly not stupid enough no one's stupid enough to make that situation blow up. But if it were to happen, just hypothetically, let's say China decides to invade Taiwan. China's right there. So they don't need global force projection power other than possibly nuclear submarines as a deterrent or something, or to escape from the theater and then engage externally or something, but we'll ignore that for the second. Their infrastructure's all local. They could get on probably pretty well without satellites because they could set up locally some sort of relay communication network, very likely, to keep their military in contact with the head of the military, or at least to keep large units cohesive. Also, they would probably be projecting their force almost entirely at Taiwan, with possibly some sort of maintenance action in the direction of Japan or whatever powers nearby just to keep them off long enough for them to win the war. So they don't really need satellites. U.S. trying to get there and intervene. We need satellites. We need methods of our carrier groups to communicate with central authorities.
I'm sure the U.S. military has plenty of plans, like if the satellites don't work, do this. If the satellites don't work, do this. But
that's one thing the U.S. has done throughout its history. Every now and then there's a news article like, oh my God, the U.S. is planning to invade Canada. The U.S., in order to train its military strategists since I think a long time ago, a very long time ago, continually writes up contingency plans for everything. They have a plan.
They have guys who just sit around all day going, what if this crazy thing happened? Well, write a plan for it. What if this crazy thing happened? Write a plan for it. And that way, if a crazy thing ever happens, they go and they bring up this document that says, here's what to do. And they do what it says.
And they continually update these.
Yep.
But at the same time, the technology is changing so rapidly that I wonder how rapidly the U.S. large system can keep up with it. And also, how quickly can they deploy these technologies to a rapidly changing theater?
Yeah, and how rapidly can they put up defenses to technologies that other people might use that they didn't think of?
Yeah, it's a very tricky situation that makes war asymmetric, but not in the traditional way of, we can project force to your country and you can't do anything in return, but, you can project force in non-traditional ways by having guerrillas or terrorists or something that we can't fight easily against with a big army marching around.
I mean, you think about arms races, back in the day in the traditional sense, and it was like, we made a rocket that goes farther. We made a rocket that goes farther and blows up bigger. We made a plane that can fly longer and drop more bombs, But that's easy to understand. What if it's, and that kind of stuff feels like you invent it, month to month, year to year, you know what the effects of that are going to be. They're pretty simple. We're going to be able to blow up more stuff. We're going to blow up something farther away. We'll be able to defend against getting blown up some better.
Now let's look at another kind of asymmetric information warfare. This one's a little more, I guess, IT related. Suppose, all right, the U.S. or Western powers or large industrialized powers, and Japan and even China now to a degree, rely on their IT infrastructure for the majority of their business. Like the IT infrastructure is extremely important to that country. Not important to a relatively technologically non-advanced or possibly third world power.
Yep.
So if that power is fighting an asymmetric war by using terrorists or guerrillas or irregular units or anything that a large power couldn't just straight up fight against, it's very easy for them to project small amounts of force on very vital things like transatlantic cables or specific infrastructure junctions that just cripple the
power
IT
plants.
infrastructure. Yeah, things like that. Now, blowing up a power plant in Afghanistan does not have nearly the impact of blowing up a power plant in a major urban center in, say, the United States or
in the
Europe.
U.S., you could blow up like a handful of power plants, and there'd be a blackout that would be enormous for a long time.
Now, at the same time, that sort of thing is not trivial to pull off. I mean,
No,
don't get us
that's-
wrong.
That's incredibly difficult to pull off.
But at the same time, I guess the real point I'm trying to make, without getting into details, because I don't want to elicit too many arguments right now, and I want to be broad, is that when we rely so much upon technology, especially technology that's advancing so quickly,
And when we use technology so much to gain an advantage,
you can get into a situation where suddenly your force multipliers or the things that prop your economy up are single points of failure that can be targeted with relatively little amounts of force.
or even if they're multiple points of failure and you have this wonderful redundant system and you thought the whole thing out and you're you're well defended and you thought of everything, even so, you now have another target set. You have a thing that is helping you win in some way, and people can target that. Whereas before, all they targeted was you directly, and there really wasn't this sort of, we have all these other things to target,
But a lot of that is kind of moot because I'm of the opinion that sort of warfare, barring something incredible happening, is not a very likely possibility. Because history has shown that in the modern era, industrialized powers do not like to fight against each other because it generally doesn't benefit anyone. They like to fight against non-industrialized powers.
Yeah, that's the democratic peace theory.
We don't need to worry about... Let's not get into that. We don't need to worry about that. Here is the IT warfare that we do need to worry about. I think there are going to be wars in our lifetime where not a single bullet is fired and not a single death is caused directly. We're going to have economic wars. We're going to have information wars. I mean, imagine a war where China is trying to pressure the U.S. into recognizing the non-independence of Taiwan or something. And the U.S. decides not to. And a war begins where China starts flooding markets with spurious orders and starts cutting transatlantic cables and starts trying to bring down the global DNS structure because they've already built internally their own DNS structure, or because of the, quote, Firewall of China, they have an infrastructure that could exist semi-independent of the United States infrastructure.
Yep.
they can attack the United States economy by having a bunch of skilled people sitting in rooms with keyboards typing furiously.
They could also attack the world's economy with straight up economic warfare with their piles of dollars.
Or they could do both simultaneously.
Even worse.
Suddenly call upon U.S. debt that they own. Suddenly ally with Russia and flood the markets with something. Simultaneously attacking the U.S. exchanges to bring down, to bring their latency up and force people to not be able to deal with the changing market conditions, thereby creating an economic recession.
You could do that.
That's all generic and crazy, and I mean, I really can't get into specifics because I don't know, and no one knows, but I think that sort of warfare is kind of be the future of war among industrialized powers.
Yeah, back in the day, say the stock exchange was just guys running around with paper, which it largely is still, but, there's computers there now. And, even when they had, adding machines and such, what could you do to the stock exchange? You could have a guy sneak in and start putting false papers around, or
a bank. You show up at a bank with, a bunch of faked purchase, or what? Well, I don't know how that all works, but a bunch of faked whatevers.
Yeah, you could try to do stuff like that, sort of espionage type stuff, but you couldn't really attack the whole thing because it was just a bunch. You could I guess you could try to blow it up.
Also, you couldn't attack it remotely over an internet.
No, well, it's really hard to attack the New York side, like the New York side exchange over the internet.
But at the same thing,
because a lot of things just shouldn't be on the internet aren't.
Yeah, like this is the one fallacy. People always say, "Oh, in an IT war, they'll shut down the stock exchange and they'll turn off machines in hospitals and they'll make dams open up." Those things are generally not accessible by the internet. That can't happen.
Yeah, remember, the best security you can have is just unplug the cable. You can have a computer. Remember before we had computers, before we had the internet? There's no reason you can't have your computer on and not connected to the internet with a wire of any kind and no wireless. And how is someone going to hack it? They'd have to come in there and do something to it with their hands.
Yep. And there are parallel structures like Internet 2 and the Internet 3 that aren't as accessible as, I guess, Internet 1. And there are pipelines and methods of communicating that just aren't accessible to the outside.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to the hospital and they put you in, like the emergency whatever, and there's machines hooked up to you, those machines are computers. They're probably not on the internet. They might be on like the local hospital network, but that's it.
I guess what we're saying in a roundabout way is that while, theoretically all these things could happen, they could attack the economic centers of a country electronically, realistically, it's still a very difficult thing to pull off. And as a result, it's really not something that the average person should really care or worry about at all.
No, you really shouldn't worry about anything anything the news says you should be afraid of. You probably shouldn't be afraid of.
Well, unless they're like, a gunman is loose in your town.
Or tornado warning now. Hurricane coming next week.
Or that broccoli E. coli.
Yeah, that's that. Well, you shouldn't be afraid of that. You just don't buy the broccoli.
Well, you should be afraid of it if you just ate broccoli that was bad broccoli.
All right, well, I guess just go to the doctor.
I'd be a little afraid when I went to the doctor. Like, I ate the bad broccoli, dude.
Well, I guess since I wouldn't be afraid, I guess I'd be more afraid if, I ate the bad broccoli days ago and I was having diarrhea already.
Now, I don't know. There's no real moral to all this. I mean, I could go on a long diatribe about warfare is becoming abstract again, and this is a good thing because it means less people being killed. But
then again, it could mean actually a lot of people being killed by someone typing in a room.
Or then again, it could mean a Shaka Zulu situation or a Greece situation where warfare becomes so abstract that it's meaningless and it's just a game. And then someone like Germany or Prussia back in the day when they said, what if we just invaded? Forget the rules. What if we just invaded? What if we just fucking go there? And then suddenly we go through the cycle again.
They went there.
And I don't know. All I know is that IT warfare is an interesting topic to debate about. It's not something to worry about. It's really all I can say beyond that.
Yeah, I guess the point is that, you should, as much as technology is super awesome, and as much as you should use it as much as you can to make your life better and more efficient and easier in every way, and I encourage everyone and every organization to do so to the fullest extent that they can, you should probably have a backup plan. I mean, not a backup plan like, oh no, so what if the world ends? But can I continue existing and continue caring about my business inefficiently, if something happens, like, I don't know, this power out for a few days.
Yep, and here's the thing. In the IT world, pretty much every important thing worth anything is so redundantly backed up, ready to be available in case of all sorts of crazy disaster, that it's not that big a concern. Most of the scenarios we presented were almost entirely theoretical and not likely.
Yeah, things that are... What kind of thing would be likely, though, that would be kind of big?
The one thing that is... You could bring down a lot of things for consumers or for average people.
If you target a specific sort of service of some kind, and you have a lot of resources at your disposal, you can probably take it down.
But at the same time, if you're targeting it from China, well, the U.S. controls most of the internet connections in the world. They can just stop that traffic coming pretty handily.
Yep.
But maybe if they had an army of spam bots, but spam bots are used by script kiddies and spammers to send spam. They're not used by China to attack your stuff.
No, but I mean, someone could set up a bunch of zombies on old Windows boxes all around the world. And
honestly, other than, this crazy space warfare that I don't think we need to worry about right now, the only really viable situation that I can foresee, but then again, I could be wrong, but I don't think we're that wrong, would be attacks against, say, general internet consumer infrastructure in order to cause general economic slowdown.
Yeah, I mean, if someone starts attacking,
bring down DNS in the
Hotmail,
US or Google or Amazon.
Amazon would hurt quite a bit.
I mean, that sort of thing wouldn't be crippling, but it would be very demoralizing.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. You take out Amazon. You might think, okay, well, obviously Amazon's going to be hurt. Well, yes. But in addition, all those people making books, publishers, Amazon sells everything, A to Z. There's going to be a lot of people who make stuff and sell a lot of product in Amazon who are going to get hurt. And the stock exchange will go way down.
And even if, it comes back up in 2 days, if then the evil Russians or whoever the enemy is at that time just says, yeah, that was us, all cyber warfare style, then that scares a lot of people, even though really the threat wasn't that bad at all.
Yep, but a lot of things can happen as a result of scariness. Because, like Greenspan said, the economics is all about confidence in what people are thinking and not actually about anything else.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Audio. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.